Memorial Day is in about a week, and it is time to pause and honor those who died fighting for our country.
Well, there is a woman who gives back to military families year-round with acts of selfless service. And this is Chick to Chick. This podcast is sponsored by Steve Gephardt and Moneyline Lending. Steve and Moneyline are committed to helping veterans achieve the dream of home ownership, and VA home loans are a powerful tool to help make that dream a reality. Connect with Steve today to explore the many benefits of a VA home loan. Go to MoneylineMortgages.com or SteveSellsEverything.com.
You know, when we think about Memorial Day or any day where we're honoring either a veteran or someone who lost their life fighting for this country, we don't think a lot about the families as much as we should. And I don't think we think a lot about all the intricacies that go into the sacrifices that a lot of families make, the needs that they have. And sometimes they're a little bit on their own getting these things done. And I'm talking day-to-day stuff.
They're a lot on their own. You remember that podcast we did with a friend of ours, Megan.
Yes.
Her husband was deployed. She was left home alone with two little nuggets.
Yes.
Two little nuggets.
Yeah.
He's been deployed again. Those little nuggets are a little bit older.
But still.
She's still on her own again. And sometimes you go, what do I do?
How can you help?
How can you help?
Yeah.
Well, there is a woman who is helping these military families. This is a great podcast. It brings us to our guest today. Elisa Holstay has an organization called Selfless Service. Elisa, thanks so much for coming on the podcast today. Tell us about Selfless Service.
Thank you guys for having me. So Selfless Service is an organization that serves to support those who serve our great nation and her communities. So our organization is a 501c3 not-for-profit built upon a network of volunteers and independently insured service providers that really just kind of step in and fill whatever gaps exist in services for our active duty, our reserve and veteran military, and sometimes more importantly, for the family members that support them while they serve.
Yeah, they need a lot of support.
Absolutely.
So when did you start this organization and why did you start this organization?
I started the organization, it actually started with an idea on my back porch in the summer of 2021. I am a military spouse myself. I've had the privilege of being married to my husband, Major Ryan Holstay, who is active duty with the Pennsylvania National Guard. I've been married to him for almost 10 years now. And throughout our relationship, even pre-marriage, it felt like during times of his activation, during times of trainings, during those times when he was gone, no matter how much you can plan, right, for their absence, Murphy's Law dictates that if and when they leave, something crazy is going to go wrong. And typically was something that I couldn't have anticipated or planned for. So following an instance like that in the summer of 2021, I had the idea to form this organization.
So talk to us about what a family does or a person does, you know, when their family member is deployed and they need this help. How are they getting connected with you? And are we talking about things like simply like I need my lawn mowed, or I really need some help getting something fixed, but I don't know the right way to go about it? Like, what types of things are we talking about?
So that's interesting that you asked, like, what types of things are we talking about? We have kind of a general working list, but it could be pretty much anything. So what do those families do if they need something? If our organization, you know, can potentially help, just reach out to us. We have a website at selflessservice.us, and there's a contact form that you can use to reach out to us on the website. They can also call us. Our phone number is listed on the website as well, or reach out via social media through direct message.
So give us some examples of things that you've done to help military families while the spouse was deployed.
Yeah,
what have you done?
Some of those things where you're going, I didn't expect this one to be, you know, something. What are those things?
So some of the things that we do include childcare. So if, for example, a spouse is away, activated or on deployment, then that spouse that's home alone caring for the family, maybe they have a doctor's appointment that they need to go to. Maybe it's something, I don't know, like an MRI where they can't take their children with them to that appointment. Our organization would provide childcare for those individuals through our volunteer network. Additionally, you mentioned about mowing grass. Maybe we have a mom at home with 3 littles, maybe 3 under 3, who says, listen, I can mow my own grass, but what do I do with my 3 children while I do so? So either our volunteers go out and help her mow her grass when she needs it, or we'll sit and hang out and play with her kids so that she can have the time to mow her grass if that's what she wants to do. So ways that we're helping right now for families, we have one woman that we're working with to provide an estimate on some roof repairs that she needs. We have another family that we're working with right now that needs a new HVAC system. And we have another family we're working with that needs some landscaping cleanup. So we're going to do our best through our volunteer network and our service providers to just fulfill those requests for support, to take one thing, right? One thing off their plate so that they have the ability to focus more on their family, themselves, and the communications that they may be having with their deployed or activated service member.
And it is important when you have this list this long, and if you can just cross one thing off, like it does help to alleviate the stress. Yeah. You keep saying that important word, volunteer, volunteer. Yeah. This is a volunteer organization, which means clearly there isn't a cost to the family that you're helping, unless, of course, as you said, if they need a new HVAC system or whatever, there would be costs incurred there or a new roof. Where do you find the volunteers to step up and say, hey, I want to help. I do want to go and help watch their child, or I will go and help mow their grass or whatever? Where do you find these folks?
And is there an age, I wonder? Yeah.
So at this point, we accept both minor volunteers, of course, with their parental consent. And we also are reaching out to volunteers of all ages, volunteers who potentially are interested in helping us out with fundraising events and providing direct support. So where do I find them? Anywhere. I'll talk to anyone at any place at any point in time about this organization, about what we're seeking to do, and how important it is for us to establish a village of support for these individuals. So I've been reaching out to people through different meetings I've attended. I've been reaching out to people through businesses that I'm connected with. I've been reaching out to people through my church and through a number of other churches in the area. And we've also been speaking with local clubs and organizations that support military families and veterans, including the VFW, the American Legion, and the AMVETS.
Going back a little bit, when you talked about this idea was born out of the fact that you needed some help with things. When your husband was deployed and he was activated and he was away, what were some of the things and the angst or whatever it is that you felt that it was troublesome? You need to get some things done, because I feel like a lot of people are afraid to ask. And I feel like maybe your story of why what was going on, might make people feel a little more like, this is good and I want to ask.
When your husband leaves, whether it's for 3 weeks, 6 weeks, or 9 months, a year, it doesn't matter. There's always, your personal and emotional feelings that you're dealing with. So that's hard enough. Now having a child, having to comfort my son when his father leaves has been a whole new level of just something, right? And to continue to do so in the evenings when he comes home from school, or in the mornings when he wakes up, or when there's something big that's going on, missing birthdays, missing first days of school, missing, jujitsu tournaments, things like that, Cub Scout events and activities. It's hard. It's hard for my child and it's hard for me. I also know how hard and difficult it is for my other, friends and family members going through the same thing, especially when their significant other and the parent of that child is activated or deployed for a lengthy period of time. Some of the things I've personally experienced outside of the emotional context, right, is that state of overwhelm. My house needs cleaned. My yard needs mowed. My weeds need pulled. I need to, get my son back and forth to school, do his homework, get him back and forth to activities. And like you were saying earlier, sometimes it's just the list, a litany of things. If there was just one thing I can cross off of there, that would make life a little bit easier. So here's some horror stories, though, that I've dealt with. Yes.
This is what I was waiting for.
Yeah, I think what I'll do is I'll build, right? I'll start with some of the minor ones and then build up to some of the crazier ones. And I'm just going to be brief. But at one point I had to have a hip surgery done. And the hip surgery required me to be on crutches for a period of 2.5 weeks and without mobility, right? I couldn't drive at all. So it was fine while my husband was here with me for week 1. But when he was gone during week 2, do you understand exactly what you can't do when you have to use 2 crutches?
Yeah.
It's pretty much everything. You can't even carry your own coffee cup over to a chair. So that's a great example of when you could just use someone, right? There are a lot of organizations out there that provide financial relief. And that's wonderful. That's amazing. And there are a lot of people that need that. So they serve, a very, very valuable purpose to our military families and to our active duty military. But sometimes you just need an extra set of hands to carry the coffee cup. So that's a minor story. Here's a crazier one. At one point, I returned home with my son from a beach trip, and we had excessive rain in the central Pennsylvania area at that time. So I returned home, walked in my house in the middle of August, and I felt that my house was extremely hot and very sticky and couldn't figure out why, when I have central air, it felt this way. It was because my entire basement had flooded with approximately 2.5 feet of water with that excessive rain.
Yeah.
Right. The sump pump had stopped working.
Oh, no.
And not only did the sump pump stop working, but when the water infiltrated the basement, it rose up over our HVAC units and fried out the motherboard of the HVAC unit, as well as the main fan. So all of a sudden I had to figure out, how do I get the water out of my basement? Then how do I repair the HVAC unit? And then eventually, right, how do I prevent this from happening again? But again, just those random things. Another story, we had put in some big, heavy natural beams in our home during a remodel. And approximately 3 months after doing so, while my husband was away at training, I heard a strange clicking noise coming from those beams. Turns out we had this weird bug infestation inside of the beams that had to be treated. And if it wasn't treated, those bugs were going to eat through the support beams we had just installed. I mean, crazy things like that. I have other stories from spouses about their furnace going out or running out of firewood to put in their indoor fireplace, about being unable to shovel their vehicle out of the driveway to get their kids to a doctor's appointment because they have 2 under 2 and they're unable to leave them alone and unattended while they do so. I have stories of military spouses who suffered emotional issues and physical issues, you name it, it's happened. And those are the types of stories where money will absolutely help. But just knowing that there is someone there to support you and there's someone there to create a connection for you when you really need some assistance is really where our organization steps in.
This is great. And again, if people want to get in touch with you, whether they need help or they want to help, what's that website again?
www.selflessservice.us.
Awesome.
Thank
Elisa,
you, Elisa,
thank you so much for joining us. This was just awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All good things.
It's great.
I think
Yeah,
it's like
it's
a
great.
building of a community inside this community of people who are really selfless in the fact that they're giving to our country, and why not help them and give back in any way you possibly can.
And what she said, some people need money. This isn't about money.
No, it's about a person there for you.
Making
people
that
there
connect.
for you.
Come over, just watch my child, just for a half hour, just so I can run to the store.
Yeah.
It makes all the difference. And this is great because it's all volunteers and no more financial obligation for the family. Great.
Yeah. We appreciate you being with us today. Do us a favor, head over to our Chick to Chick YouTube page, like and subscribe. And until we're back to chirp about another topic.